Hi there. Welcome to the National Stress Awareness Day. It's pretty exciting. Friday, we are streaming here from the Biohacker studios. We have Dr. Olli Sovijärvi and Siim Land joining in. Siim Land wrote the book, Stronger by Stress. So we have a real expert here. And we also have written a few books, including the Biohackers Handbook and a number of other things. So if you're on the chat, my name is Teemu Arina. So please ask any questions or provide any comments or anything you want. This is a Q&A session. So whatever's in your mind about stress and how to improve, stress management and avoid those things and maybe use it as an advantage. This webinar is all about that. So yeah, I would love to hear how it's going for my dear colleagues, Olli and Siim. Maybe Olli, you go first.
Hey, yes. Hi everybody, and welcome to the Stress Biohacking Q&A. So we are here back in Helsinki. Teemu is in Tallinn, and Siim is in what place? Saaremaa. So we are all around. We actually form this Bermuda Triangle, the triangle of stress, connecting the whole world in the northern hemisphere. So I'm actually pretty good. I just had a 12-minute activation or recovery phase in the Neurosonic device, and I'm ready to rock. Had some sun, like 2 hours of sun today, Wim Hof breathing sessions, and good stuff, basically. So ready to rock and roll with you guys.
How about you, Siim? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing also good, and it was pretty nice weather today, and had like a great workout. After that, I just took the sauna, and yeah, now I'm just winding down and ready for the live stream.
Nice. You're doing it all correct. Getting ready for it. So I propose that we do like a little, like just a simple breathing technique. I have found personally a lot of benefit for doing this Wim Hof style of breathing to start the day. And if you're someone who is a long-term, who is long-term or just beginning meditator, anyone would get benefit from a practice like this, especially before meditation. I've noticed that I'm able to go deeper and it's easier to relax. And if you have any kind of like issues with the monkey mind, doing 1 or 2 cycles of Wim Hof style of breathing is really useful. So I propose that normally, we do like 3 rounds, but we're gonna do 1 round. So everyone joining us live, you're welcome to do this with us. So it goes the following way.
Just a quick notice to Siim, maybe you can restart your YouTube stream because it's not going on before we go into the breathing.
Well, I'll check it.
Yeah,
did you get the
setting up like the stream to his channel, but we are streaming on Biohacker Summit YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't yet.
It looks like it's live actually.
Nice.
Okay.
Then let's go
we are
to
going
breathing.
on Siim Land's channel. So hopefully get that working. So back to the breathing techniques. So we're gonna do 1 round of Wim Hof style breathing. So you basically breathe in through the nose and then you breathe out through the mouth. And basically try to, fill your lungs as fully as you can, like really deeply, and then breathe out while releasing it. It's not like really like pushing it out or constricting the airways in any way. It's just a release, like you just release, okay? And we do it around 30 times. Basically, you breathe in, you breathe out in your own face. You don't need to follow anyone's specific face. Follow your own face. And after around 30 breaths or so, I'm going to put a timer on. Once the timer goes to 0, then you just empty your lungs. And then you hold your breath. You hold your breath for 1 minute. I'm going to put a timer for it. And if you feel like, passing out or something like this in your chair, you better maybe, take a breath. Don't do this if you're driving or anything like this.
I'm standing here, so if I'm collapsing, so forgive me.
Just pay attention to all. When he collapses, it's time for you to take a breath in. Okay, and when you take a breath in, you fill your lungs and you hold it for 15 seconds. We do only one round. It's good to give a little bit of energy and also to balance the nervous system a little bit. It's been a long week for a lot of us, so yeah, let's go. I'm gonna put the timer on. Here we go. And so basically, just take a deep breath and breathe out. And we start. You breathe in, you breathe out for 1 minute. All right, get ready to just empty your lungs and then hold your breath for 1 minute. And then just fill your lungs, take a deep breath in and hold your breath and squeeze your stomach muscles, your neck a little bit, push it up to the brain for a good 15 seconds. Be grateful for this day, be grateful for this week, be grateful for being able to be with us in this webinar. We are at least extremely grateful. And you're welcome to release. Here we go. So I often like to do that 3 times in a row, and then I do it the 4th time. Every single round I'm extending it. So basically going to 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and so on. And then I do a 4th session where I'm actually reversing it. So I'm basically, instead of holding my breath when my lungs are empty, I will hold my breath when my lungs are full and squeeze it up and then release. And after that, it's just amazing to go and do a session of meditation. And for meditation, I often like to be under a red light device. I might use one of these spike mats sometimes. So I like a spike mat. It releases some endorphins as well. For red light, I have a red light panel, but we also have, right now in our shop, we have also available the Flex Beam. It's now available. We're shipping at biohackercenter.com. So that's a really nice portable red light device. I might put this on my chest. I might put this behind my neck, depending on what I want to achieve. And then I just take a meditation session. And if you have never done meditation, I hardly recommend trying it out with the Headspace app. So it's pretty amazing, like setup. You get the basics for free, and there's a really nice paid subscription also for guided mindfulness sessions, and you can choose how long you're gonna spend in a nice relaxed state. And over time, I don't really use any apps. I can go much deeper without any kind of guidance or any of that. But sometimes I use binaural beats just to relax. And one pretty useful device that I also use sometimes in combination with these is the Sensate. Sensate is a stone kind of thing that you put on your collarbone, and it basically uses ultrasound to stimulate your vagus nerve through your chest bone, and it really brings you into your body. And many of these like stress release techniques are about bringing you back into your body. And the Sensate device combined with some nice headphones for binaural beats is pretty relaxing and nice. But in the end, like doing the breathing techniques is extremely effective way to bring you into your body, and it has a lot of benefits for immune system and health in general. And if you ever feel anxious or stressed, like doing that kind of practice is pretty awesome. I've done that now every single day for since the beginning of this year, and I just feel amazing like doing it every day. And I've done Wim Hof previously, but doing it every single day, that's when you get the compound effects. So what are, guys, your favorite stress management techniques? Like what do you do like when you feel overwhelmed? Let's start with Olli.
I use this pretty quick stress kind of like relieving very fast techniques. One which I learned from Scott Sonnon, who's a like a martial artist, world champion, and he has this primal stress concept. So it's called the resilience breath. It's very simple. If you're, for example, in a combat situation, or you're like very emotionally over like excited.
Happens to me all the time with emails and social media.
But basically, the technique goes like this: that there are actually two techniques. First one is this: that you use 3 rapid breaths, and you take first in and then out, and you're like. So like super quick, like in, and you can use your hands. So you kind of like push the energy and quickly you push it down. The other one is that you hold your palms together and you squeeze, and you kind of do like a pressing movement that's not actually moving anywhere, but you're pressing against your own palms, and you do this rapid Pastrika or breath of fire for, let's say, 20 counts, like
doing nasal breathing.
Yeah, you can do it by your mouth, but I find it better to be doing via the nasal cavities or nostrils. So this is if I want like a quick release for the stress, or let's say some vibration, or maybe a quick exercise, like maybe doing some push-ups, or just, you know, if having like too much energy, and especially if it's mental energy, you kind of put yourself back into the body with breathing and some like muscle tension. So that would be my quick fixes.
Nice tricks. How about Siim? Like, do you ever stress?
Well, I think I don't really get like stressed out anymore. But like what I do is, because of like I avoid it preemptively, so to say, like I take care of my sleep and stuff, so the stress doesn't catch up on me. And whenever I do maybe feel slightly, you know, that I'm beginning to get stressed out or something, then I also like to do something very physical and something movement based. Like I'll either have like a good workout, I'll just lift the weights and listen to some music and maybe do some cardio or something to just kind of like shake it out or go crazy a little bit physically, because I do think it helps to kind of alleviate the tension and that sort of thing, get your mind out of this rumination and things as well. So because animals do it the same way, like if a dog or like a cheetah gets into like a very stressful situation, then they shake it off basically and kind of do something exerting, because the cortisol kind of helps you to give you some energy, while at the same time you're gonna come down from the cortisol as well, and you kind of go into this sort of like a small crash like you crash from the workout or you crash from the exertion, and after that you're kind of really mellow or like tired in a good way, because then you can just relax.
Yeah, or maybe you start barking. Like
yeah, well, that can also work, and
that also could work.
I would love to recommend a few books like for this, what Siim was talking about. So Siim was talking about how like animals are shaking off stress reactions and all that. And I would recommend Peter Levine's book, several of those books. Waking the Tiger is a pretty good one. So here we go. Let's see, make this a little bit bigger. And
the eye of the tiger. Wake
the tiger from within.
Yeah, this one also, the unspoken voice is pretty good also. Where's the Amazon link now?
Rocky, the eye of the tiger.
There's the why zebras don't get ulcers is also like a good one.
It is, yeah, classic.
Yeah, sorry about the quality of this stream. Like we're just cutting this out from the stream. But yeah, unspoken voice. That's pretty good book. Oh, this looks really horrible on the stream. And there's another book. This is from Bressel van der Kolk. The Body Keeps the Score: Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. We're gonna post them on the chat. And by the way, if you're following this on Siim Land YouTube channel or Biohacker Summit YouTube channel, we're happy to get your questions, your comments. So I'm gonna take a quick look like right now. So
I should do like some of the slides that I had to talk about.
Yeah. I'll give you
this
opportunity to. I just encourage people to jump in and ask questions. So Eric Warmath is petting his dog. So that's a pretty good thing. Someone took a walk, and some people do like some pretty amazing like exercise things as well. There's a lot of questions coming along. Someone is doing Kundalini breathing. But yeah, let's give Siim the opportunity to give us a little overview of stress and how we can optimize that, as well as let's give some basics to go into the details.
Yeah, I will share my screen. So do you see it?
Oh yeah.
On the stream as well?
Not yet. We see like clips. Maybe Eetu just put.
What about now?
Maybe Eetu just put on Siim's feed just to see only Siim. So I think we can. Then,
yeah, you can.
Yeah,
sure.
there you
go.
go.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
So yeah, basically everyone kind of has this idea that stress is really harmful for you, and it is true that too much stress can be bad and can be certainly unhealthy. But in a way, this isn't necessarily caused by the stress itself. It's almost caused by our own reaction to the stress. And stress itself is almost like neutral. It's what we do afterwards, or how our body responds to the stress that is kind of differentiated and causes the end result. And this Hans Selye is one of the basically founding fathers of stress science. And he did a lot of like research in different animals, looking at how they respond to stress. And he has this quote that it's not stress that kills us, it's our reaction to it that does. So yeah, we always have like a different way to react to stress, and it's not necessarily going to be harmful all the time. And Hans Selye also came up with this concept of the general adaptation syndrome, which describes the stress response, and it has like multiple stages. So the first stage is the alarm stage, basically where the stress happens. You encounter something dangerous or something stressful, and this triggers, alarm in the body. Your body kind of reacts to it, and kind of triggers all these defense systems. The second stage is the resistance stage, when the body starts to fight the stress or this kind of injury, whatever it may be. And in this stage, your body kind of gets weaker a little bit, but it starts to fight it by, releasing cortisol, releasing glycogen from the muscle glycogen stores, kind of promoting this different kind of hormonal milieu as well to kind of fight the stress and resist it. And the resistance stage can have like multiple outcomes. It can end in either recovery, which is like you recover from the stress and you go back to baseline, you go back to homeostasis or balance. Or the other alternative is exhaustion, which will then lead to like, some disease, sickness, or, ultimately death. So some people, or depends on the stress, depends on how big the stress is, how adapted the person is, and what kind of end result is gonna come from that. So yeah, there's always like different multiple answers to any particular stress. And what determines whether or not you become exhausted or whether or not you recover is dependent on something called adaptation energy. So that's also what Hans Selye came up with. Adaptation energy is basically this currency that our body has that we use to deal with the stress. And I've outlined basically these three stages for this three previous stages. Like the first one is the trigger, where we kind of experience this kind of stress. That stress can be anything. That can be just work-related stress. It can be exercise as well, like good exercise, just some kind of pressure, peer pressure, time pressure, social pressure, any kind of just feeling of anxiety, environment, these diseases, insulin resistance or diabetes, and hormonal imbalances, hypothyroidism, whatever it is, or just toxins as well. All those things can be a trigger for our body to become stressed out, or at least experience this general adaptation syndrome. Things that help us to recover from the stress, that kind of replenish our adaptation energy and help us to heal, are like, the good things like sleep and rest, getting enough of the essential nutrients from your diet, especially like magnesium. Magnesium is like a very important one for stress primarily. Social support, just, spending time with friends and family, having like a peer group that you can rely on. Financial status can help you to deal with the stress, because if you have like, financial problems as well on top of the stress already, then your adaptation energy is much lower, and you're much more likely to go into burnout. Then just being generally healthy, if you are fit and healthy, then your overall stress resilience is higher, because of like, if you exercise, then you're already used to the exercise. And if you eat healthy, then your body has all the essential nutrients. If you sleep well, you have like this bigger buffer zone for dealing with the stress. And lastly, all these like mental, psychological traits like well-being, self-esteem, self-confidence, and beliefs and values, all those things help us to recover. Like if you believe in something like greater, then that's just make it easier for you to kind of tolerate the stress and kind of find some meaning from it. Whereas if you're, let's say, hate yourself or hate other people or something, then you're again like lowering your ability to tolerate the stress. And lastly, things that lead to exhaustion are all these comorbidities, every kind of disease, overnutrition, obesity, aging in general. Like you get older, you get less resilient against stress, and all these past traumas as well. If you have like childhood traumas or some other traumatic events in the past, then the research has been shown that it does lower your body's ability to tolerate the stress. Like PTSD, like veterans who come from war, they have PTSD, and their ability to tolerate like everyday stress is much lower. Like they get burnt out even like some very simple everyday tasks. And nutrient deficiencies, social isolation can be a big stressor. Like if you're alone all the time, then you're again not that resilient against stress. At least like your ability to recover from the stress is slower. And chronic stress or poor sleep, like if you're not sleeping enough, you're experiencing too much stress, then that will eventually lead to exhaustion. And lastly, I want to introduce also the concept of hormesis, which basically just describes that which doesn't kill me makes me stronger, like a small amount of positive stress that causes like this beneficial response. So in the moderate amount, it's actually very beneficial and makes your body stronger. Whereas if it's in excess, it's gonna make it harder for you to deal with it, and eventually you're gonna exhaust yourself. And the hormesis applies to like the inadequate stress as well. If you don't experience any stress at all, like if you don't experience any stress from exercise, or you don't experience any stress from, I don't know, like some intelligence or cognitive tasks, then you're also like under adapted to the stress, and you're not able to like really deal with it. So yeah, like stress can be harmful, but it's also like the amount of stress that matters, and how well are you able to, you know, recover from it. And
Right.
that's it.
Nice. Maybe we give the opportunity for Olli dive deeper into the nervous system aspect of it, and,
Yes.
and tap into things like hormones and adrenals and the vagus nerve and sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And I can look into some of the technologies.
For sure. Yeah, this is perfectly explained by Siim of the GAS, or the General Adaptation Syndrome, which I still think it's kind of like the cornerstone of how we can perceive and somehow like manage to conceptualize stress and what's actually happening. So it's a very, I think it's pretty simplified, but still very valid model. Just a quick reminder of our biohackercenter.com store. We have now for 1 week code 10 April, and you get minus 10% of all products, even from those that are actually discounted, such as Sensate. And we also have Siim's book in our shop. And what I just had a little Google journey about your book. This is actually the cheapest price you're going to get Siim's new book. But yes, a few words about the sources of stress. So this is an integral 4-quadrant model, and in Siim's slide you had these different kind of sources of stress, but this is I think this is a nice way of taking a look at the sources of stress, because people usually think stress is maybe just exercise or just some mental stress or maybe a little bit of family stress and so on, but actually all of these are accumulating the stress levels. And we have like the subjective level of the internal stress, all emotional stress, negative stress, psychological trauma and so on. And of course the external, the body level, objective level stress, different kind of physical imbalances, food allergies, hypersensitivities, toxins and so on. And on the collective level, if you think about the situation of the world and the time, at this present time, there's a lot of social stress, a lot of family stress from the society, and so on. And of course, we even have this interobjective level, which is the collective external level of stress. Think about like all the EMF that's out there, 5Gs, electromagnetic radiation, all kinds of natural disasters and so on, which have been accumulating throughout the years. So it's no wonder that we are being bombarded by different kinds of stressors, but we all have the keys how we can manage this, and that's why we are, for example, doing these kind of things to make you more resilient. If we take a look about the stress, like this basic Gauss type of curve, we want to be most of the time in the optimal level, or maybe at points in the hyperstress, but usually this eustress and hyperstress levels where we are peak performance, not all the time. We might get a little bit of overboard, but not too much, and then we are again feeling relaxed. So you can think about this curve when you navigate through the day and through the week. The key controller of the parasympathetic nervous branch or system of the autonomic nervous system is the vagus nerve, and it's basically regulating all the internal organs in our body, and from digestion to heartbeat to breathing and so on, sweating, speeching, eating, and all essential functions we see different kind of problems. If there is problems with the vagus nerve, like dyspepsia, reflux, colitis, poor glycemic control, too much urine excretion, and even poor immune function. So that therefore the vagus nerve is in the key point if you think about the controlling the stress response. I think this is a pretty good picture that explains the stress response, both long term and also the short term. So the short term response is from the SAM system, or the sympathoadrenomedullary system. We secrete catecholamines, basically it's usually adrenaline or noradrenaline. This might be the fight or flight response. It's very rapid and it usually goes off also quite fast. Then we have the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which is the long-term stress response, and it follows this circadian rhythm. The cortisol is higher in the morning when we wake up, and it gets lower throughout the day towards the evening. And both of these systems are necessary, and they need to be in balance for the body to function properly. This is also a pretty nice image. This is actually from a rat study, but this is adjusted for humans. And here we see kind of like the dominance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. It's not that the one is only like active and the other is not, but they're basically like coexisting and regulating the state of the body simultaneously. So for example, if you're running like 160 beats per minute, it's definitely not resting or parasympathetic mode. Usually it's close to 0% and 100% sympathetic mode. But you can find your own like inner rhythm where you're performing at your best. And usually it's not like too low heart rate. Of course, this is individual, but somewhere in the middle where they kind of like overlap in control. And a few words about the hormesis, as I think Siim went through this pretty nicely. Too low oxidative stress on the cellular level, it's not creating any benefits. But if we have a, let's say like a regular exercise or a cold exposure or some kind of like adaptogenic herbs or chemicals or tinctures, or even sunbathing, we create less of oxidative stress and actually more of these antioxidant capacities. But if we go overboard with any of these, it actually goes over the hormesis or the hormetic response and creating much more trouble. So I think this is enough for me of the theory. Yeah. Let's get into the means.
Let's take a look at the chat. So let's get some audience engagement in. Actually, what Olli just said, what Mabu is saying, I suffer from physiological burnout, fatigue, muscle pain, concentration problems since 4 weeks after self-destructive training sessions.
Oh boy.
Getting out
another
of it.
said about external factors like work and partner, that things are out of control. Yeah, I mean, get a divorce, quit your job, don't over-exercise.
Quit your life, man. No.
Yeah, and it's not easy, of course. There's so many things that are out of our control, but there's a lot of internal mechanisms for sure. And when it comes to exercise, over-exercising is definitely one thing, which, weakens your immunity and it doesn't give enough time for your nervous system to recover. So you can use things like heart rate variability to measure and figure out if you are rested and recovered. And I don't know if it's possible to show my screen now, like if it is, yeah, here we go. Like this is just live showing right now my heart rate and heart rate variability. And this is Sweet Beat Live, and I'm using a heart rate monitor. I use BioStrap, which is in my hand instead of instead of around my chest. I like to use that in my not in my hand, but kind of like arm. Next to the muscle, and I can see the different components, and I can dive deeper and take a look at the HRV curve. And so this is not heart rate, Otherwise, I would be probably hospitalized with arrhythmias. But this is the HRV, which is like the variation between two heartbeats. And what you want to see is kind of like a nice signal that goes up and down in a certain spectrum. And if this is like going all over the place, or if it's not like relaxed in a way, then you might be like in an overtrained state or overstressed state. If you are just relaxing, I'm now speaking, I'm kind of like performing, so it's influencing it, but I've taken some adaptogenic things and so on, so I see it's doing a really nice curve without me doing anything. But if I take a break and I just like take a deep breath, but just focus on it, I can make it much more harmonious, and I can expand the envelope in a way. So that's a nice way to figure out like the physiological state. And many people do this HRV measurement in the morning when they wake up, and I recommend you to do it at the same time. There is
What
definitely
about Mr. Mabals?
Mr. What?
Yeah, the questioner who was in the physiological burnout. I think we could answer him.
Yeah.
Of course, measuring.
Yeah. I mean, but basically, like I mean, like if you do work and exercise and you're overburdened, like following your HRV is a good measurement, but you probably feel if you're like pushing the envelope a little bit too much. And maybe Olli, you can give Mabu like some advice here, because you also have over exercised and done stupid shit with your body.
Yeah, well, basically everything too much, like years back. Of course, throughout the years, I've accumulated different kind of means, but what comes into my mind that usually the reserves of the body, the micronutrients, but especially the amino acid pool is in the catabolic state. So I would add in like the essential amino acids, and with quite a huge dose, I would say that like 40 to even like 60 grams per day. So there are a lot of good products. It depends, of course, where in the world you are. Keon's aminos, they have this master amino acid pattern, the MAP, which is 99% absorber and the usability. So fixing the amino acid status, it usually is the fastest way to recovery. And this is, I would say, this is like number one. Then comes everything else, of course, eating enough calories, getting micronutrients in. But usually this has been the most helpful thing to many overburned. What do you think, Siim?
Yeah, like I think certainly the protein and getting enough calories is very important, and the amino acids tend to be more relevant for exercise and the thyroid and the things like that. So that can certainly be very important. So you don't necessarily maybe even have to take the amino acids, but just eating, let's say, more protein and amino acids from food generally is going to be important. But sometimes, like people, let's say, if they are in this burnout, then that can also be that the body is like not essentially not producing enough cortisol, so to say, that they are so resistant to it and they're so kind of overburdened that their body isn't just being able to be alert and not have energy, because you're in the slump where you're like low cortisol all the time, like you're basically dragging your feet because your body isn't producing the stress hormones that you kind of need a little bit to be energized. So I think that goes back to the circadian optimization, that you need to kind of reestablish the optimal circadian rhythm, that you wake up in the morning, get some bright light, definitely you get some sunlight throughout the entire day all the time, movement basically also around the morning AM part, and in the evening make sure that you're blocking out the blue light and getting good night's sleep. That should like eventually allow your body to kind of establish these rhythms and allow this natural cortisol rise to also wake you up. Like you could also start to strategically have caffeine in the morning, but that can also be like a double-edged sword, that maybe you just get too much caffeine and too much cortisol. So yeah, like I can test it and see what happens. So like some caffeine in the morning can be good to kind of kickstart the circadian rhythm. But if you're like not able to tolerate it, then just green tea, some other, let's say, less caffeinated beverages, those would be better. And maybe like high dose magnesium can also be something that you can try out to kind of re-establish or restore the magnesium stores.
I would also add in quite high doses of salt, like high quality mineral salt, Himalayan pink salt, because usually people who are overburnt, they are overburnt also the aldosterone aspect, of course the cortisol, but also the aldosterone. So adding in salt, getting of sodium is actually one of the keys here, but the electrolytes in general. So a lot of things I would measure and ask this person. Usually what I saw in the practice was this: if you take like this saliva cortisol curve, it's depends on the situation, but in these kind of situations it's usually like pretty low. There's now this noticeable spike that should be in the circadian rhythm, so getting this back with adequate nutrition and adequate rest, but also this kind of adequate stimulus. It's kind of like it's very subtle nuances that usually affect this situation. Of course, depends on the person's background, whether it's been like previously experienced or whether this is like a one-off situation and so on. So maybe measuring even the melatonin and cortisol levels throughout the day from the saliva would be a good idea.
There's a question from Andrew Olson. I see that acute stress like sauna, cold shower, exercise limits the effects of chronic stress like work-life stress, but is there a way to prevent the effects of acute stress like a panic attack? Now, what happens in a panic attack is actually there is often, I mean, they've been studying this. Some of the most well-known ways to induce a panic attack is actually to inhale CO2. So increase the CO2 level of in your blood, and the other one is lactate. That they would use lactate to generate that state, and there's some studies that also show some linkage to pH sensitive receptors in the brain and so on. Like it links, of course, to the blood pH level that fluctuates a little bit with breathing in or breathing out. And obviously, like if you have like, sense that then a reaction like that is coming along, like just being able to stabilize your breathing and breathe out slowly is effective. But of course, it very easily goes into hyperventilation. So what we do with like Wim Hof method or breathing techniques is actually to play around with the boundaries a little bit of how your body is able to deal with CO2 and hyperoxygenation as well. And when you learn to play around with that envelope, it becomes easier. Of course, in a panic attack, there is a component of amygdala and hippocampus in terms of fear control that just goes out of whack. But in the end, like what I've learned, I'm not suffering from panic attacks, but I had friends who have. What often helps is cold exposure. And like regular cold exposure, as well as these breathing techniques, they can really help you to train your response to stressful situations. And I personally noticed, like if I have anxiety or work stress or something like overburden, like doing these things immediately helps, and meditation, of course, as well. And there is a component of neural inflammation and low-level inflammation also that plays into anxiety and stress and so on when you are sleep deprived and you don't necessarily eat a proper diet, or you haven't had time to exercise, and you have all these things that are going on in your mind.
And blood sugar fluctuations.
Right.
Blood sugar fluctuations. Of course, there is like a physiological effect in terms of inflammation that links into it. So being able to control inflammation is key with diet, for example, with enough sleep. And maybe some technologies also, like red light has been a big thing for me. Like the Sensate device is amazing, and the Biohackers red light panels as well, because it charges your mitochondria, and mitochondria are of course key for energy production, and they also play a role in regulating reactive oxygen species and inflammation. So reactive oxygen species were the things that Siim was talking about in the context of hormesis. So basically, when you have hormesis going up, the reactive oxygen species go down. And there are some supplements also that you can definitely use to help a little bit with mitochondrial function. And one of my favorite stacks or products in that category is the Qualia Eternus product. And here is the Qualia Focus is there, but Qualia Eternus is perhaps the best for dealing with mitochondrial issues. And
or is it Qualia
of
Life?
Course you can look for NA. Yeah, it's Qualia Life nowadays. Qualia Life.
Yeah.
And then there is of course NAD supplementation, nicotinamide ribosides, and M&M. But I would still go for some basics here we have Vidaculas like zinc and ashwagandha magnesium gives a really good stack. And I often increase the amount of magnesium and B vitamins, even like B vitamin complex if I feel overwhelmed. So when you're overwhelmed, you tend to drink too much coffee. So getting some theanine. And another one that I really recommend is lemon balm. Lemon balm is really good, relaxing thing. Everyone talks about coffee and theanine, but coffee and lemon balm, that's a pretty good combo as well. So those are some of my kind of takes on that question.
Yeah, like when you're like in an airplane or something and you start to, I don't know, pass out or panic, you get a panic attack, then what they recommend you to do is take this paper bag and breathe into it, because you breathe into the bag and you get your CO2 back from the bag. So you're not losing the CO2 because CO2 helps you to relax. If you're hyperventilating, you're only breathing out and really fast, and you're losing the CO2. And that's what makes you freak out even more because of the lack of CO2. And without CO2, you're gonna lose the oxygenation as well, and you can pass out. Whereas if you breathe into the bag, this back and forth, then you're breathing into your CO2, and that can be helpful for relaxation. So when you are in the middle of a massive panic attack, then that's probably kind of the fastest thing that you can do to kind of regain your calm. And what I remember from I don't know, some proverbs in Estonia or some traditional, not medicine, but traditional things was that even just a regular sugar water is something that really relaxes you and calms you down. When children get when children get a nightmare or something, that I remember grandma's giving them just a tablespoon or a teaspoon of sugar mixed into some water, mix it together, and you drink it, and that kind of just immediately relaxes you, and you can just calm down because you get some CO2 from the carbs as well by burning the sugar. So that's
even some salt in there. So that's what they do in the ER, the paper bag, but they also put you in the IV with some glucose and like a ringer or this sodium chloride solution. So that's usually the most effective way of treating these kind of things. Actually, many things, but if you wake up during the night having a panic attack, that's usually a sign of your blood glucose suddenly dropping, and then you have this adrenaline, maybe cortisol response, and you wake up, your heart is beating, you may be sweating. So maybe at that time this idea would seem to be pretty helpful.
Yeah. Because if you are, let's say, going hypoglycemic during the night, then that's definitely going to cause stress. And that's where the sugar is also helpful. But if you're if you are keto adapted, basically, then the hypoglycemia is very rare. Actually,
it is. Yeah, that is what I noticed when I moved to a ketosis. So I used to have these kind of night awakenings when especially when I was really overexercised, overstressed, waking multiple times per day, and to these kind of heart beating and sweating and so on. But none of these have happened, even though I've exhausted myself in different ways. But being keto adapted, you have this energy source. You are tapped in, even though if the blood glucose would go a little bit lower.
I've noticed with keto adaptation, like harder to fall asleep and a little bit like overdrive and more prone to stress in the beginning. Yes. So definitely the carbohydrate component is like key here, and blood sugar fluctuations. So and there is someone commenting that low salt can also cause a panic attack.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
a good addition.
So that's
So
why salt, glucose,
yeah,
water.
it's important. It's important. Lako Tunde is asking, what's your guys your opinion about stress caused by electromagnetic fields? Why is it cumulative? Why can't we think in terms of hormesis in this field too? We actually do think in terms of hormesis, like these are hormetic stressors. And basically the idea is that in modern life, we are like surrounded by so many different stressors, like, poor air quality, poor, sources of food with all kinds of toxins and chemicals added in, and work-life stress and social media and emails and poor sleep and all kinds of things. And when you put EMF on top of that, that's an additional thing that might like have a compound or cascading effect. But definitely there are studies that show that radiation can actually be helpful. So this is what many of these like fundamentalist EMF is all bad believers.
Like zero, you should have zero. Everything.
Yeah, they completely neglect the benefits of radiation. I mean, radiation has shown like in small quantities to be actually healing and helpful.
And we are actually getting like radiation from the sun like a couple of days ago, huge coronal mass ejection. So it comes, whether you like it or not, it comes.
Background radiation, yeah, and it's a good question. Like then about the harmonics of it, if it's natural, man-made, or whatever. I mean, the debate is out there, but I see that there is better areas of your life to optimize than just looking at EMF alone. If you're looking for eliminating stressors of your life,
maybe just counteract with nature.
Yeah, I've noticed actually some people like they get super stressed about even thinking about EMF. So maybe you're just focusing a little bit too much on it.
Yeah.
But I do, turn my phone into airplane mode, and I try not to, sleep next to a Wi-Fi router or a generator.
Are you sleeping on a Faraday cave? Because that's also what people do. I know
some
many,
people do, like they go crazy about these things, and I think there is a balance to these things. Like, of course, you want to reduce excess exposure, and you want to think about distance.
Like unnecessary. I think the unnecessary would be word here.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you don't need to sleep like phone next to your head. You don't need to sleep next to Wi-Fi router. You probably don't need to sleep at your office with like tens and tens of Wi-Fi's and maybe higher radiation. So you can, of course, manage your circumstances.
For me, it's balance to these things. I mean, like even like some ringworms could be like probably hormetic stressors, and there's actually some studies that show that some parasites are actually very good for stimulating our immune systems in low quantities. Like, the reason why children should play outside and be next to nature is that they get exposed to all these like organisms that can actually be beneficial, just like bacteria or fungus. And I mean, in your bodies you have like candida, for example, which in small quantities is amazing, like for your health, but in high amounts, like that's a huge problem. So yeah, people when they get into health, they get a little bit carried away. They get a little bit too focused on, or fundamentalist when it comes to specific like health advice or opinions, and it's a whole. When you go deeper into this, you learn like that there's a.
And there are ways to kind of mitigate the EMF damage, like some studies find all these antioxidants, the ACE vitamins, the vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, they can help you to deal with the radiation or the oxidative stress that you experience from that. So it's not like a black and white thing, that it's like a equation basically, like how much stress are you experiencing and how well are you able to recover from it. If your, let's say, glutathione levels are low because of like either aging or because of a bad diet and not enough exercise things, then of course the EMF and radiation is going to have like a bigger effect. Whereas if you are, let's say, hormetically adapted person, very resilient and fully optimized in terms of the macronutrients and micronutrients, then it shouldn't be like a problem. Your body should deal with all the kind of stressors, and it should also kind of be able to recover from those things and not be like wiped out from them.
Yeah,
maybe all we can talk about adaptogenic plants now, because adaptogens have actually been used to reduce like stress caused by cosmic radiation to astronauts, for example.
That is
Rhodiola
true.
is an
Yeah.
example.
It's
So some of these plants as hormetic stressors can actually make you stronger to be able to deal with EMFs even.
Yeah, I think the compound you mentioned or the product was like SRS232 or something cryptic like that contains.
It's a formulation that has rhodiola as the key component, so that's just like a product term. It's not a specific
it's not just rhodiola. There is this Siberian ginseng, but also I think it was Schisandra. So there were like 3 of these.
Yeah, Schisandra was one of the key things there, but adaptogens in general anyway.
A combination. Anyhow, if you think about adaptogens, this might be like not new things for people, but they create resilience. They create these resources for your body over time, unlike stimulants which borrow energy and then you have the payback time. Well, we mentioned roseroot, could be also called Arctic ginseng or Nordic ginseng. Everybody has to have their own ginseng, but this is one of my favorites if I need to have a little bit more energy and also a little bit more focus, but not the stimulation. So we know that this is also lowering cortisol and adrenaline levels, but it also increases different neurotransmitters in the brain, in different parts of the brain, like acetylcholine, limbic system, noradrenaline in the limbic system and the cortex, serotonin in the cortex, and also dopamine in the limbic system that regulate, for example, emotional control. So rhodiola is a tremendous product, not to be used like all the time, but like seasonally and especially if you need some more energy to combat the stress. Then there's ashwagandha, which is like the Indian ginseng, Withania somnifera, that's very popular these days, different kind of forms. The newest one is the Shoden ashwagandha that we have in our store, the Biohacker Center store, the Vida brand, Finnish brand. But this traditional water extract has been shown to like lower cortisol levels and increase testosterone, but also increase GABA and the overactivation of the HPA axis. So this ashwagandha is more of like a calming. So I use these as like a partners to each other. So ashwagandha is more like a feminine adaptogenic herb, and the rhodiola is more like a masculine. So they kind of also balance each other. Reishi, of course, this is a bit different. It's not so like straightforward affecting the HPA axis or the autonomic nervous system, but this is more of like a immune system affecting also neurogenesis, neuroprotection, providing relaxation and really helping to fight fatigue and especially anxiety. This is also to say to open up the heart or the Shen, and that's why it's called the Shen tonic. Not really an adaptogenic herb, but the theanine that's in the green tea, what that biohackers put in the coffee. It's also shown to reduce anxiety, stress, lower heart rate, and increase blood flow, but also like increase the alpha-1 brain waves, which is usually means that you're in a relaxed state. Different things. I don't think we should mention or go through all of these, but basically like nutrients. For example, if you think about the situation with the maybe overburned adrenals, so vitamin C is crucial, absolutely crucial, because the adrenals, they actually store vitamin C, and using this multiple times per day. I noticed that if people are really burned out even like 5 grams per day taken on like 5 different doses is and has been really helpful. And when if you combine this with pantothenic acid, the vitamin B5, that's also something that supports the adrenals. Then of course, as Teemu mentioned, the basic B complex vitamins, especially vitamin B6 and B12, the active forms, and magnesium. We have mentioned this like many times, but magnesium, one of the most important minerals. And also one addition would be the long chain omega-3 fatty acids. We have the Biohacker special stress supplement that's been created to tackle many aspects of stress. We have central ashwagandha, N-acetyl L-tyrosine, a bioactive form of tyrosine to really upregulate the dopamine production. We have theanine, green tea extract, and these vitamins B6 and B12. You can get it like exclusively from our store. There we go. Are you still there?
Right. Let's see if there's more questions coming along. There's a guy from Cyprus, Alice. Do you think that we are able to transform accumulated stress with some special techniques into actually positive energy and overcome some stressful situations with clear mind? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're talking about here is the difference between eustress and distress. Distress is the more negative stress that goes overboard, and then there is eustress, which is the positive side of things that makes things grow. And exercise is a good example. As eustress in small quantities, it helps your muscles to grow, your body to become more resilient. In large quantities, in too much, it turns against you. So same with work, same with the things that you do. And in the end, a lot of stress comes from the way how we relate to things, how we relate to our environment and to situations. And in the end, practicing meditation and also like some basic organizational skills, like if you have a lot of things to do, like just being able to write them down, categorize them, and focus on the essentials helps a lot. And also not to take yourself too seriously or the things that you do, or to be too overburdened by deadlines, because in the end, no one is asking you to do any of this stuff. It's you, yourself, and your commitment to things. That is a kind of major psychological factor. And yeah, I mean, if you have too much work, communication might help with your boss, of course. Like in the end, being able to recognize source of stress. So once you recognize them, become aware of them, then you can transform them and to a strength. And challenging yourself, like the breathing techniques and cold exposure, sauna and ice baths, cold showers. Many people report that when they do something difficult like that every day, then mundane daily things become easier to tackle and deal with. And yeah, those are some of the kind of tips and tricks right there.
Yeah.
Someone mentions, yeah, CBD. CBD is great. I mean, if you have like low level inflammation, like pain management, pain can, of course, like if you have like constant pain, like I know what it is to live with chronic pain. I've had that. I don't luckily have it right now, but it eats you. It takes. I understand fully why people take painkillers, but in the end, like to be able to go to the root of the inflammatory process and to be able to deal with that, treat that, it transforms the way how you relate to things and your consciousness for sure.
Also,
And then
manual
emotional
therapies.
pain also.
Manual therapies I would add in, because we store a lot of emotion, a lot of stuff in the extracellular matrix in our body, in the fascia, regularly, like taking care of yourself, releasing what needs to be released, whether it's in the muscles, whether it's in the bones, joints, or in the fascia. So that I would highly recommend. So I have this, for example, on my experience, I go once a month to an osteopathic treatment, then I go to an acupuncturist, and also to a physiotherapist that takes care of the whole body, releases all fascias and all possible muscle tension. So keeping your body free of these different kind of tensions and accumulated energies, and that's also like keeping you younger and more functionable and less stressable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stretching, yoga. I also go for a special Chinese dude who does some meridian massage, and that just helps. Like the last 10 years, been really useful.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that you would see an ad?
Well, I think the best kind of, as well for soreness and inflammation, in my opinion, is like some cold water. And usually when I come out of that, like it feels like really good and like more limber and definitely more loose in the muscles. So you're not like that stiff and kind of sore all the time, especially from workouts. If it's because of workouts, or even like any kind of inflammation, like if I feel sleep deprived or something, and if I'm like, I don't know, some sort of other like stiffness, then taking a cold bath or cold shower can be really good.
Indeed, I have to show you this slide, taking cold exposure to the max. So if our editor is awake. There we go. So this is the way. Where did you go? Jack, where did you go? So we know that acute cold exposure increases HRV, improves autonomic nervous system adaptability, but also it lowers inflammation, helps to reduce delayed onset muscle soreness, and reduce oxidative stress. So there's a lot of good effects on that. So I think, Siim, you have a new document coming up, and I think we have the trailer here. So
it's like a teaser type of thing that we the film is about gonna be stronger by stress, and how do you become like stress manageable and adaptable to it. And it's just kind of a basic teaser trailer, kind of give brief insight into what it's gonna be about.
Wow, can't wait.
Let's roll it. So Siim wrote the Stronger by Stress book, and a documentary, similar title, is coming along. Like this is a preview. Not many people have seen this. So
the world premiere trailer.
In a world.
The roots of the stress are in the culture.
It's just go, 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 go. And many of us get caught in that trap where we sort of want to out-hustle or outperform. We have to be productive all the time. And
well, chronic stress, that's kind of like a disease or a plague.
My mind made me sick. I pushed myself over my own limits.
Negative stress is something that breaks things down, while the beneficial stress that makes you grow challenges you enough so that you actually get to your peak performance.
You're not only seeking help when you get sick. You actually create your resilience to different kind of challenges that we are facing as a humanity, but also in your personal life.
technically speaking, everybody's a biohacker. Everyone's performing biohacks on a daily basis, whether they know it or not. Drinking a coffee in the morning, that's kind of biohacking. Caffeine to stimulate you, to wake you up and get you in this more active state and be alert and show focus.
Individually, it is the way of living. Collectively, it is the preventive healthcare system.
All the available tools that we can use from nature, from science, from technology, from all kinds of possible ways that we can enhance our self-consciousness.
It's kind of sad that most people don't ever truly get to understand how amazing their bodies are and what they're capable of.
We can live in the desert, we can live in the Arctic, we can live in the rainforest. So that's been, I think, one of the biggest reasons to our success as a species so far.
Physiologically, we've been actually domesticating ourselves.
We are basically looking at diversity and how that supports resilience and your health.
Just to be able to feel good, you need to pay attention to several things at once. Eating better, sleeping better, moving constantly.
Stressors and environmental disasters, they're not going to go away. They're going to keep happening and we can't really avoid them. The only thing we can do is to keep ourselves more resilient, keep ourselves more adaptable, and to prepare for those things in advance.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's very cool.
There we go.
Can't wait.
There's a lot of familiar faces right there. So some people who have been to Biohacker Summit might recognize some of the locations and people and all that. So, and by the way, we have Biohacker Summit this year in Helsinki, Finland. It's going to be in October, so you better book that up. Like we did that just before the second wave, and we had like close to 1,000 people in Helsinki. Despite the pandemic, no one got sick. Everything went just well, and hope to do that this year as well. And the next year, it's going to be. We moved our Amsterdam event to next year because of some of the restrictions, and that's going to be awesome as well. So take a look at biohackersummit.com. And Siim Land's book, you can already buy the Stronger by Stress at biohackercenter.com. You can get the book right there. And yeah, so Siim, you've been filming the documentary, talking to all these people. Like, what have you learned about stress? I mean, a lot of people think about it as a negative thing, but while working on this book, on this documentary and book, you discovered something else.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I learned, like a new thing or something I could re-emphasize, was maybe the like the psychological side to it. Like it's a lot to do with also like you can change how you respond to the stress psychologically, and therefore it's going to also change the way your body responds to it. Like a lot of maybe like the narrative in your head, like the self-talk, like self-belief, and that sort of thing can be really, let's say, impactful in terms of determining the stress response. And if you are, let's say, experiencing like this traumas or something, and you're maybe have like self-hatred or bad negative thoughts and things, then that's going to be make it a lot worse. So that's probably the biggest thing that I kind of learned from not only like writing the book, but also like the other people that I talked to in the film.
Yeah, it's there is like a lot of like focus on stress as something to avoid, but in the end, like embracing stress, embracing challenges in life, embracing difficulties is actually where people grow. And I have to attribute like the best experience of my life, like the most growing things to both physical and emotional stress, which is overwhelming. I mean, working on crazy deadlines, having a breakup with someone you love, like losing a friend, getting sick yourself, like having no hope is amazing because it puts you in a place from which you can grow. And you don't do that kind of work like from a happy, feel-good state but it's like you have to sometimes go to the boundaries to experience like stillness. And that's what I learned from talking to people who have done this cold exposure to the extremes, like Kiki Bosch, for example, who's a lady who's been all around the world, like doing crazy documentaries on cold exposure, like swimming in really frozen lakes and all that. Is that like there's a certain calmness that comes from like all that difficulty. And yeah, I see stress as a positive thing, but it's very important not to become cynical or not to lose hope, because there's always like some room for improvement and some room for affecting things still. Like even if you're disabled and you have a disease and constant pain, there is always some room for hope. And that's the Stoic idea, like focus on the things that you can actually influence and control. And every one of us is limited in certain capacity in certain ways, like in our lives. Everyone has stress, but in the end, it's about like how you relate to life difficulties. Are they making you grow virtues, like really deep virtues? That's where it really all comes from. Mark himself is saying, guys, the best trauma and stress therapy, in my opinion, is clearly IFS therapy. Totally changed my life. Teaches people how to deal with their own overprotective ego. IFS. Anyone knows what IFS is? What's that short for? Sounds like
I
some
haven't
kind of
heard
don't
of
know.
that.
I
I've
don't
just
Yeah.
I would like to add when you tackle traumas, you have to tackle kind of like the fulcrum it developed. Where was the origin? Was it like even like pre-birth? Was it in the womb? Was it during the labor, or just when you were born? Like this fulcrum 0 to 1, or in the childhood, in the like in your youth, in your teenage years, when it's happened. So there are different kind of methods, different kind of therapies, different kind of techniques for each of these. And often when people say this is the absolute best trauma release therapy ever, it is for this person for sure, but it depends on a lot of things that happen, and there are a lot of good stuff, a lot of good therapies, and that's why trying out this yourself and maybe finding out about the literature and finding out where and how this therapy affects and what kind of a feature. So that
Yeah,
would
there,
be
there
like,
is. IFS is internal family systems therapy. It's psychotherapy. So yeah, about therapies and all that. Like next year in Amsterdam, our topic will be hack the ego, and it will focus on all these things. I think we are all kind of broken in different ways, and there's trauma, and Olli was talking about like that it could even start in the womb. Like Stanislav Grof has written several books about this, like prenatal experience.
Jakob Yankov,
might be like-
this primal scream
Yeah.
theory.
yeah, things that might be going in the family, like. But I think like in the end, like one great quote is that the trauma might not be your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility.
Yes.
So you should make sure that whatever trauma in your life, or if it's passed down from your parents, maybe you had some egoistic, narcissistic parents or whatever, like abuse going on in the family, or like maybe your family was poor, whatever it was. In the end, make sure it stops with you. Don't pass it on. Like, become aware of it, work on these things, don't pass them on. Like, that's your responsibility, like in the end, like with all
And now it's
life.
time.
Another quote by Carl Jung is like, "I'm not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." So you can always change the trajectory that you're heading towards, whether that be in your I don't know, job or personality, your vocation, whatever it is. You can always change the trajectory and choose a new response.
Totally, yeah. Jordan Peterson has in his book 12 Rules of Life this idea that you should never compare yourself to others, but yourself, who you were yesterday. I really like that way of thinking, like that you should always, find ways to improve yourself, compare yourself to the one who you were yesterday, and not be worried about what other people think or what other people are in the end, like if other people are better off than you. No, I mean, just like think about how can you be better tomorrow compared to who you are today, and that's the way. Like every single day you have that opportunity to make some improvement, become aware of some things.
That's also how you time travel every day. Like comparing yourself to your previous self, like yesterday, a week ago, like that with that triunal time wave meditation. So maybe actually this just came to my mind. So we could share a link to this meditation, because this is a really amazing meditation, the triunal time wave meditation. But what I wanted to say is that you can travel like in your mind and just compare, okay, this is what I was, this is what I'm now, this is what I want to become. Time traveling.
Yeah. So I'll post that link on the chat soon.
Yeah.
But one
maybe
thing
a wrap.
that maybe a wrap
or a wrap.
Wrap it up. Yeah, let's wrap it up. Yeah, there's some questions about nutrition and all that. Like, yeah, I mean, I went through some of those examples in our Finnish version, and one of those is shellfish, like shells.
They're so shellfish, man.
Yeah, get some shellfish, and for the for the taurine in them, like that helps your nervous system to relax. And there's many foods in nature that have tryptophan, for example, in them, like some nuts and chickpeas and stuff like that. And when you feel stressed, like try to get some antioxidants like dark green leaves and vegetables, and anything like dark pigments like blueberries, bilberries, acai, sea buckthorn, maybe, different dark pigments. Those are great for controlling reactive oxygen species and phytochemicals in the end. Like, I mean, nature heals. If you feel like overwhelmed, go to the forest, like eat from the ground. You feel much better after you connect with your true self. Like, there's so much email, so much media and crap out there. Like, just go nature. That helps for sure. At least in my case, it's been helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I think we are.
So if any one of you want to get your hands on some of the products that we recommend, go to biohackercenter.com. We ship internationally, and Siim's book is there, and some of our recommended products. You can take a look at what we personally use. And yeah, secret all barefoot. Yeah, go barefoot. That's the way, man. Go barefoot. Yeah.
Every day.
All right. Hey, everyone. I wish you an amazing National Stress Awareness Day. Hopefully you're not stressed after this webinar, but you feel like, hey, I got something that I want to implement right now. And I wish you an amazing weekend. It's a good moment for stress relief. For some people, it used to be, they go and they get like drunk, wasted, like don't sleep at all, and morning back to work. But maybe with the pandemic that you can't easily do that, it's actually a blessing. Maybe you can do some stress release, breathing techniques and meditation and stuff like that instead.
And also some laughing, touching.
Yeah. Jokes.
Basic stuff. Laughing is medicine. So laugh more.
Yeah.
And after this stream, please type in the chat like a couple of words, like what you thought about this, so that we know like that you were listening, and if you got anything, just put a few comments in there. We're happy to read it. And
this was rubbish. Absolutely rubbish.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's roll on the final.
Okay.
Final trailer. Thank you guys. Thank you, Siim. Thank you, Olli.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Cut it out. Bye.
This was great. Thank you guys, and have a nice rest of the
Remember also to have some